Have you ever replayed a conversation in your head and suddenly felt embarrassed by something you said hours ago? Not a big mistake, not an argument, just one small sentence, one strange pause, one look you couldn't quite understand. Maybe you were at work, chatting with a colleague in the hallway, or during a short break. You exchanged a few ordinary words, ended the conversation, and went back to your day. But later that night, as you were lying in bed trying to sleep, your mind suddenly brought that moment back. Did my tone sound too cold? Why did they hesitate before answering? Was my response strange? Did I make things awkward? It feels like your mind has found one tiny moment and decided to play it on repeat. You want to press stop, but the loop keeps going, stealing your sleep and leaving your chest feeling heavy. I know this loop well, and for a long time, I thought it was just a personal weakness. Maybe I was too sensitive. Maybe I cared too much. But recently, I've started to see it differently. Maybe this is not just a flaw in your personality. Maybe it's a built-in mechanism of the mind. So today, let's quietly look at why our brain replays conversations after they end. Why does our mind press the replay button without asking us? One way to look at it is this. Our brain is always trying to predict what might happen next. It is not replaying the past just to punish us. It may be collecting data, checking small signals, and trying to prevent the same kind of discomfort in the future. When a conversation ends in an unclear way, our mind often treats it as unfinished business, a vague reaction, a strange pause, a smile that felt slightly forced, a message we cannot fully read. In human relationships, ambiguity can feel surprisingly uncomfortable. Our brain wants to closure. It wants to know where we stand, whether we are safe, and whether something needs to be repaired. So it pulls the scene back into our awareness. What did I miss? What did they mean? What should I do next time? In that sense, mental replay may be a kind of social simulation. By replaying the past, the brain tries to prepare for the next interaction. It searches for blind spots so that we will not be hurt, rejected, or caught off guard again. It feels tiring because it is tiring. The mind is working in the background, even when the conversation is already over. Strangely, this usually happens when we finally stop moving, when we are taking a shower, walking home alone, sitting in a quiet room, staring at the ceiling before sleep. The moment our conscious tasks become quiet, another part of the mind seems to wake up. It is like a small alarm left running somewhere in the background. You may not see it directly, but you can feel it quietly using your energy. Living in Japan, I sometimes feel that we are trained to notice very small changes in atmosphere. A slightly different tone, a pause that lasts a little too long, a smile that feels bright but not completely relaxed. Of course, this is not unique to Japan, but in a culture where harmony is often protected through subtle signals, the mind can become very sensitive to tiny shifts between people. And maybe this sensitivity is connected to something much older. For most of human history, being rejected by the group was not just emotionally painful. It could be physically dangerous. Isolation meant real risk. So maybe our brain still carries an old social alarm system, a slight coldness, a delayed reply, a strange look, a conversation that ended awkwardly. To the modern mind, these may be small things, but to an older part of the brain, they might still feel like danger signals. This does not mean the fear is always accurate. It means the system is trying too hard to protect us. Maybe an ancient survival tool is still breathing inside us. Even in a modern office, a modern apartment, and a modern night that should have been peaceful. So, what can we do when the replay begins? Lately, I have been trying not to fight the thought directly. When I notice the loop starting, I simply name it. Oh, my mind is replaying that conversation again. That small act creates a little distance. Instead of being swallowed by the scene, I can observe it from the outside. This is not magic. The thought does not disappear immediately, but naming it changes my relationship with it. It is no longer the truth. It is a mental event. Another thing that helps is writing it down. Not beautifully, not logically, just honestly. What happened? What am I afraid I did wrong? What do I wish I had said? Is there anything I can actually do now? When the thoughts stay only inside the head, they can feel endless. But once they are placed on paper, they become smaller, more visible, and easier to handle. It is almost like telling the brain, I have received the message. You do not need to keep sending the alert. Sometimes the goal is not to solve the entire problem. Sometimes the goal is simply to let the mind know that we are listening. And once the mind feels heard, it may slowly stop repeating the same thing. Human communication is always imperfect. No matter how carefully we choose our words, we can never completely control how another person receives them. Realizing this helps us draw a quiet boundary. My words are my responsibility, but someone else's entire inner world is not. Of course, if we truly hurt someone, we can apologize. If something needs to be repaired, we can try to repair it. But not every awkward pause is a disaster. Not every strange look is a rejection. Not every unfinished conversation needs to become a trial inside our head. Tonight, if your mind opens that old notebook of regrets again, maybe you do not have to read every page. You can gently close it. You made it through the day. You did enough. You are allowed to rest. Let's turn off the background apps for tonight and give the mind a little space to breathe. Tomorrow will bring its own conversations. And maybe we can meet them with a little more room inside ourselves.